Hey all, BPRadiant here to hit you with a hello and with another list. This time with a few things changed from our last one. We are going to be going over the top 5 commanders we have from the new Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. I know I, for one, am really excited for this set. It's very fresh. We get a cyberpunk setting in our Magic the Gathering universes, and even more so that it's like cyberpunk samurai mix. I think it's a really great chance for us to kind of bring back from Kamigawa where it was, but let's not waste any time and let's get right into it. I'm joined today by Smurfy. Hey Smurfy, are you excited for the new set?
I am absolutely excited for this new set. In fact, if my mind could be visualized, it's like the fireworks all over this set, the colors, they pop. I'm ready to go.
Me too. With that, guys, we're gonna get right into it real quick. This is a little different than usual. We are doing this remote. Smurfy unfortunately did come down with something, and we want to keep everybody keep safe. So let's get into this. Coming in at number 5 slot, we have Light-Paws, Emperor's Voice. Now, this is an incredibly unique card because it's just a very unique style in a mono white deck. Now, that's not to say mono white hasn't had like Enchantress type builds, but nothing that like actually gets to tutor out with it. It's incredibly mana efficient as a 2/2 for 2 with a pretty solid ability. You can start dropping like a 3-drop enchantment or a 2-drop enchantment and start getting a ton of value if you want to play a Voltron style. Now, on its own, it's very unique for white. I've gone over that, but it's also really good in things like Zer the Enchanter, Siona Captain of the Pylius, Bruno Light of Alabaster. These it all becomes like a turbo card in these as you want to try to get out your combo piece enchantments a lot quicker. Now, that's not to say that it doesn't have great synergy with cards like Flickering Ward or Conviction that basically are like a 1 or 2 mana enchantment that can then flicker back to your hand so you can recast. And since it's equal to or less on the one you get to tutor for, it actually leads to some very interesting cards where you can actually get protection from enchantments. Some of the old protection from 2-color enchantments for 1 and things like that. And white actually has a few enchantments that give protection from a color but doesn't drop off enchantments, which that can lead to some very cool ways to get protection from all 5 colors for like a little bit of unblockability. White, of course, has things that give indestructible. As you can even search up things like Pariah and that to keep Light-Paws alive and keep it from being removed and basically kind of play out the stall game. I think in general it'll probably end up in the 99, but it's still a pretty interesting and unique take if you want to go for a mono white build. And it does have a couple of things that kind of give it great synergy when you cast these spells. I would be very interested to kind of see where this one goes. Do you think this one's going to see more play as a monocolored list, or do you think it'll be more in the 99 Smurf?
This does strike me as a 99 card. I think as far as white being aura enchantments, I think there are other things that fit in the commander slot a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Things that just take that role. Uh, but I am curious to get your thoughts on for light pauses and rules clarification. How does she interact with curses?
So it is gonna be an aura, which curses I don't believe are auras. They're enchant player. You could still play the original one, but I believe the next one is an aura that then has to target um, light pause. It's a very weird one, and the fact that I'm also trying to think if white has more than just the one curse.
See, I don't think it does. So even if that's where my mind went with it, and
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right. Excited to put her in the 99 of a lot of different shells, and maybe there's something that unique that will come out of mono white auras with her combo fetching.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see if there's a list, it's definitely something that runs like a lot of protection, and then you're using a lot of ways to get protection from other colors, and then you're basically recasting things, and then you eventually get ethereal armor out, which is like your big buff effect. Um, but I'm interested to see where it goes. I agree with you. That is Lightpaw. Coming in at the number 4 slot, we have a partner commander pair that I think a lot of groups are actually going to rule 0, much like they did in the original Kamigawa block. We have the Sisters Yamazaki with Heiko and Norika. Now, of course, I think these are going to be rule 0 pretty easily. It's just like one of those things where like they feel like a partner pair, they work in conjunction with each other, and I don't think they are really that strong and built together, and they're in the worst color combo of Boris, so I don't think it'll be too big of a deal to see this. What do you think of their abilities, Smurf?
I think this is perhaps the more interesting of the samurai or warrior attacks alone triggers that I've seen from the set.
Mm-hmm.
I do think the fact that you have to cast those target cards from the graveyard, be it the artifact with Heiko or the enchantment with Noriko, makes them very safe. But I am curious to kind of see, that recasting value from the yard in Boros, which before Lorehold we just didn't see all that often.
No, I totally agree, and I think the fact that it's also conditional and one a turn means it's really hard to break. Like it shouldn't be like on the power level scale, probably like a 5 to a 7 tops. But I love the idea that you have Red's looting, so you can kind of gain card advantage that way, as well as the fact that like getting to bring back like a Vidalcan Ori, Mindslaver, Minimus Containment, Pariah. Soul Snare is a fantastic card with this. Like 1 white mana to have an enchantment that you sack to exile a creature attacking you that you can then get back. Like this leads to some very interesting options, I think, for cards that are pretty underplayed to kind of like weaker cards that would sack to do an ability. I know for a fact that in your Modrotha deck, you really love the green seal. And I think that like the green and red seal, like, a shock seal you can then bring back seems pretty good for recurve value. Um, do you think that, it plays along with some of the other lore hold cards we've gotten so far that deal with the graveyard?
Not on the face of the text. I think Lorehold has a couple of those exile from graveyard synergies, but there's certainly some looting that we got on some of the lower rarity stuff, and like you were saying, there's just simply some really good targets in red and white for reanimation with these folks.
No, I totally agree, and I don't even necessarily know if you need to run them like in a very warrior or samurai heavy deck, or if you want to have some way to give like an evasion. Looking at some of the samurai and warriors that are already in the set, like there's a couple others that just give you impulse type draw, which I'd be interested to see like all that stuff making it there, or how they interact with some of the extra combat steps you can get in Boros with maybe even just being able to like take a couple different attack steps with things you already have in red and red white to bring back things like a Mishra's Bauble like 3 or 4 times in a turn to draw and gain card advantage that way, while only doing like a few damage at a time is pretty interesting. I wish that they were in more of the exalted colors. There are some mono white exalted cards that I think will help to trigger this. And then I also like the idea that it works from the attack alone stuff that might be there for paladin class and things like that as well.
Mm,
That said, though, I'm looking forward to potentially building this and then breaking Mindslaver, obviously.
of course.
Coming in the number 3 spot, halfway down the list here, is going to be Hinata Dawn Crowned. Now, this is a very interesting take because it's already a 4/4 for 4, so I love it. It's got that kind of nice mid range feel to it. And it works really well with certain spells. Curse of Swine already being really obvious. Exile whatever you want for double blue seems really good. Dance of the Manse if you're playing like an artifact or enchantments that get wiped in the end game. Bringing them all back as 4/4s is really crazy good. Things like Keelad's Intervention to get to exile any number target of artifacts or enchantments for just one. Mass Manipulation only costing blue, 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 blue X. And Comet Storm getting to basically multi-kick for free. Because I did look it up, and kicker counts as an additional cost, so that cost can be reduced by effects. It's super interesting. Do you have anything you're looking forward to with Hinata so far, Smurf?
One thing that actually comes to mind when you mention the Dance of the Manse interaction is it's kind of like you've seen Keenan being used, or I believe his name is Keenan, the Orzov spells that target reduce cost. Those
Killian.
work with Killian, thank you. Those work with enchantments that target too, and that should work the same way with Hinata, right?
Yeah, I believe so. So long as they are, like they don't work with. They have to be like an aura, I believe. It can't be an enchantment that has an ETB that targets. So like
Mm.
the Oblivion Ring effects won't work, but it could be an interesting kind of like enchantment commander as well, like auras.
Just when you mentioned Dance of the Manse, it came to mind where you could do auras that are then being brought back with your Dance of the Manse later on. But
Yeah, I mean,
sidetracked, less hype than the kicker cost reduced Comet Storm the whole board.
well, and my favorite thing too is Soulfire Eruption is normally like I think it's a 9 mana spell with you pick any number of target creatures or players, and then you exile cards from your library for each one and do damage to each one for the card that's exiled for it, and you can cast those cards within your next turn. Like that becomes a massive draw and a massive removal for triple red, and that's just like whoa. And I just think it really kind of moves the whole deck to efficiency mode.
And for the Magic the Gathering noobs out there like me, I hope you put that card up on screen so we can see that spice. Soulfire Eruption, you said?
Yeah, it's a fairly new card. I want to say it's in the Prosper deck. I have to double check. Might be from before that. I'll try to put a link to it in the comment below. I don't think I have it up right now. I totally get you though. Like it's crazy. There's a lot of spells. Like he not doesn't do anything new for Jeskai. Like it's a Jeskai spell slinger deck. Oh no, we've got like 6 or 7 other commanders that do that. But I do think that it at least in it changes the cards you're gonna use up a lot. Like I think that getting 2 mana Sublime Epiphany, like you're more inclined to run Sublime Epiphany over say like a Cryptic Command, and the same thing for the new Prismari card. Um,
Mm. Magnum Opus?
yes, a 2 mana Magnum Opus is also like really
Ooh.
tantalizing to like make all
Yeah.
that happen. I think that Hinata, I don't think will quite be up there with like power of things like slivers, but I think like Kalia, it'll kind of be kill on sight because the entire deck is designed to work with Hinata. So I don't think this is a commander that, unless your like pod is super low on removal, that you can play on turn 4. But I mean, the fact that he turns like any number of counterspells into like 1 blue, or any of the bad cancels into just regular counterspell, um,
Mm.
because it does count for targeting your opponent's spells in the stack too. I think like there's
Okay.
definitely some very interesting kind of control spell builds here. Um, and also the fact that I really like that you bring up the fact that you could play a bunch of auras. Like you could even play auras that affect your opponent's stuff, so that you could then bring them back with something like Dance of the Minutes at the end. That'd be like a super interesting way to run the deck. Um, I don't know. That's like my mind is racing with ideas here, and some of them pure jank. uh,
Well, and to that end, though, also on the other side of that, doesn't she tax the opponent's targeted spells as well? It gives everything Ward 1, essentially.
Yeah, it gives everything Ward 1, including not just your spells in the battlefield, not your creatures, like your spells on the stack. So to counter a spell of yours, it becomes 1 more to counter as well. Um, and even like if they were trying to target you as a player, it would also cost 1 more. Um,
Okay, so is there a shell out there, do you think, for Hinata to be some sort of Jeskai taxes, making it more difficult to interact with your board as much as decreasing the cost of your spells?
I could definitely see that, because I could totally see myself wanting to play things like Thalia or some other hate bears that make it harder for my opponent to like actually interact with me. Because I'm getting a cut down on my tax for each target, and I'm building most of this puzzle list to be less. Paying an additional one's probably not gonna hurt me too much. I also think that there's a lot of other ways to kind of go about that too. Um, like you could even do like a little bit of a pillow fort type theme. Um, it just kind of depends. Right now, the hardest thing I'm seeing is that the deck gains a ton of value, and the fact that you're a 4/4 flying trampler is really great. But I feel like there still needs to be some push to put in a win condition. And I think you're kind of like, it feels like you're probably supposed to go combo with it, so you can then have like the reduction potentially for the combo. But I could also see there being something there with Hinata aggro, and you play like a control suite to just protect your Hinata. Because already having flying trample for 4 power in turn like 4 or 5 feels incredibly strong if you're looking to potentially aggro down. So I could even see it being played to some degree like some Narset decks do, where like you're kind of
Mm,
like playing your Narset as like your win condition, and the rest of the deck
okay.
is just support that. But I don't know. I'm really interested to see where this goes. There's definitely some people who will find things that I didn't, and will probably like. I bet we'll see this for is one of the more popular commanders that comes out this year for sure. Coming down into the number 2 slot, we have a card that has the best art by far. There are no wrong answers for which of the 3 art you got here, and it's something I'm very excited for and has a lot of story implications to it. That's right, it is Sartoru Umezawa. You know, and this card is super interesting. The idea that you can give any creature in your hand ninjutsu. It's not the ninja commander I necessarily wanted to build around, but it's the ninja commander that we deserve. Um, I've definitely got lots for this, but Smurf, do you have anything you wanna bring up about this guy before I go into a tirade about him?
Only that the unfair things that you put into our pod with things like Rakdos are suddenly going to have a new and even less interactable vehicle onto the field. Curse you, Wizards, and curse you, Satoru Umezawa.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when I think about how this deck plays, I feel like it plays a lot like Kalia. You're getting your Satoru or Kalia out turn 4, and at least or 3 or 4, and you're looking for a turn 4 or turn 5 threat of something big. Um, I think so. I think he'll be just like Kalia, where he dominates mid to low power games because like there's not a ton of interaction or counter spells going around. And then even then you're still in blue, so you can actually protect him at least with counter magic, slightly better than you can Kalia with things like Hexproof or counter magic. So that's pretty cool. I know just like a super thin amount of things you could cheat out early. Shieldred, Jingataxis, Blightsteel Colossus, Eldrazi, Agent of Treachery, cards that like have major impacts. You could either go things that have like if you don't answer this by the end of your turn or whatever, by the time it gets back to me, like it's a huge issue. Or Blightsteel Colossus is straight up, in fact, it's a win. Eldrazi may not get the Annihilator attack buff trigger, but no, I mean I think having out like, a 10/10 indestructible on turn 4 is pretty good. And I think the fact that you can use these small unblockables like the Changeling Outcast. That's a 1 mana unblockable, and like we have 3 or 4 1 mana, 2 mana unblockables in blue right now. That you could pretty easily, I think, play an unblockable turn 1 or turn 2, play Satoru turn 3, turn 4, drop out a big fatty, and like live the dream. Like this is magical Christmas land deck, especially if your opponents are running low interaction. So like if you know your pod is pretty light interaction, like you could basically go let your Timmy go free. Um, there are two interesting things though you can kind of combo orient with this. So ninjutsu works in a way where if you ninja something in, you still are an unblocked attacker, so you can actually abuse any of the battlefield effects with this. So assuming you have a ton of mana, you could like Agent of Treachery in, bounce the agent, put the agent back in for 12 mana. That's a lot, but there's also some things you can do to get infinite mana during this combat step. If you have things like Peregrine Drake or Great Whale, the creatures that basically when they ETB untap 5 or I think it's 7 lands, they can effectively, if you have both those, you just go infinite mana for sure right there. As long as you have 5 lands, because you keep bouncing them, untapping, playing it. Which, oh no, we broke Peregrine Drake. First thing there. And then you eventually use that to cheat out things like Agent of Treachery and ETB effects to keep generating value there. That said, there is also a moment where once you have ninjutsu'd in, your opponent can react to destroy the creature. So say you want to, you have 8 mana up, and you've ninjutsu'd in Blightsteel Colossus to kill your opponent. Your opponent goes to Swords to Plowshares. You can still ninjutsu your Blightsteel back out of battlefield and put something else in that, whatever you have less in hand, and it will then fizzle the swords. So it's really important to know ninjutsu is very weird, and I may be putting out an entire video about ninjutsu and rules interactions because it also works in a very fun way with a commander, Atrada the Silencer from the newest set of Ravnica, where you can ninjutsu after the damage step in response to the cleanup of damage step or an ability that triggers during damage step. So, for instance, Atrada, when it does combat damage, you exile an opponent's creature with a silver counter and shuffle Atrada into your deck. Well, you can instead, in response to the trigger, ninjutsu Atrada back to your hand and put something else out. And that basically lets you still get the trigger of exiling something with a bounty counter, and then you get to keep your Atrada to play, and so that can become like a really fun win condition. And Atrada themselves is unblockable, so if you still need to like Blightsteel something, like it feels like just a complete auto include in the deck. And then also there's some really fun when it does damage to your opponent effects, things like Sphinx Ambassador or Mind Leech Mass or something I really love, Lord of the Void. These all grant really powerful effects upon making contact with an opponent that will generate you basically like the ability to cast a spell from your opponent's hand or deck or creature. Like it's crazy and it's in the colors, and it could be a really interesting take on like a theft deck. Since there's still a lot of good flying deft options, you can still play in that color pair. But yeah, that's what I have mechanically about Umezawa. And then there's also something really important. So we had thought when you looked at the end of the Kami War, Umezawa basically got banished to Dominaria by the Myojin of Knight's Reach at the end of it, which is why we have Umezawa's two different Umezawas on Dominaria, including Umezawa's Jite, which is on the art for one of the cards. And like it's blown my mind that there's still descendants that thankfully were still on the plane, which I think is part of why it's such like a fun callback to it. I'm excited to see if we get more story as to like the why, or if they're just kind of gloss over it and say maybe it's like our distant relative. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know, but there's a lot of fun lore implications of that. Did you have anything to add after my? I said I was going to go on a tirade, and I think I did.
I think you have, in fact, delivered. And the only thing I would expand on a little bit is uh, while Commander gives you a huge number of bombs, if you want to take this into Arena as well, there are lots of 1 mana 1/1 flyers in blue and black these
Mm-hmm.
days to enable that same thing you were talking about. And Jin-Gitaxis, both old and new, Sheoldred, Agent of Treachery, maybe not Agent of Treachery, I need to check that ban list.
It is banned.
Are okay, good. Are all those bombs that are still available, even in the digital formats. So
Mm-hmm.
I think you should expect to see him in a lot of singleton commander style formats.
Well, and it's interesting you say that. For those of you who don't know and are watching this before the video is released, on the first day on Thursday, I actually have already brewed a Sartoru Umezawa list for Historic Brawl that we will be recording live on Thursday, basically as soon as the set goes live, and trying to get that uploaded with our Radiant Laboratory. So I'm glad you bring that up. We've brewed it. There's also a ton of already unblockable things. Like we have 3 different like below 2-drop unblockable creature cards we're running with like River Sneak, Mistbind Herder, and the Changeling Outcast. So I'm very excited to like this dude. So much, so much, so much, so much, so much. You'll be seeing a lot of this guy. You're right. Coming in at number 1, we have the one, the only Isshin Two Heavens as one. Honestly, the epitome of an interesting Panharmonicon design, and that he doesn't just take over Wolfgar's space by 1, not having green, and 2, triggering off of your opponent's attack triggers as well, leaving him some very interesting space in there. I think that the fact that he has a distinction that he can trick there works really well with like the drain enchantments, like Revenge of Ravens. Some of the curses can be really fun. Getting to double trigger on Curse of Opulence or the Zombie Curse seems really cool. In addition, even the political cards, like Smurph, I know you like playing Brina. It will double trigger Brina's attack triggers as well, and some of the other
Mhm.
triggers you have in there. Um, do you have any interesting thoughts on like the design of the card that you've thought up yet, or anything you want to bring up?
You kind of touched on my biggest excitement for him in that Brina was a fantastic commander for that Orzhov politics space. And I think
Mm-hmm.
there is a lot to like about adding red to that mix with some of the curses and some of these other effects that you can bring in. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how he mixes in and steers up the pot a little bit in the political arena.
Yeah, and I mean, there's definitely some interesting cards in there that kind of like only work in his color combo. Um, so for instance, we have a enchantment. I think it's 1 and then Mardu. When a creature attacks, give it +2/+2. Um, and like that getting double triggers, like when a creature attacks, give it +4/+4 seems really strong. Um, Obviously, it works really well with the new samurai triggers. Since you only have to attack one thing, and you get all these triggers stacking. It's in Mardu, so it has human synergy since it is human, which can be really great. The creatures that attack don't even have to fully make combat damage. So, oh look, we broke Reconnaissance, one of my favorite one white enchantments. The fact that you can even have these really powerful attack triggers that could be even like a build around things like Velomachus Lorehold, Greven, the new Krazakar the Eye Tyrant, even Aurelia the War Leader, giving you double combat steps. Sure, you only untap for the first one, but you're in white, red, and black. Like that color combination has a bunch of ways to give vigilance. If you want to be on the more powerful side of things, fuck it, run Winota or Kazul Tyrant of the Cliffs. Like Kazul double triggering to give you 3/3s every time an opponent attacks is crazy good. You're in red, so you have red black, so you have plenty of access to goad. Winota getting double triggers on the attacks is pretty great as like a secret commander to the deck. The fact that you have like certain enchantments like Paladin class or Duelist Heritage that will then give you like massive advantages like double strike on things. Um, you even think about like you know this fun and aggressive strategy there. I think he'll end up being weaker than things like Zergo, World Slayer, or even some of the like vampire. We're talking about like Edgar will probably like better as far as like an aggro list just because of like the honestly the more powerful synergies they have. But I think that there's still going to be like a lot of like fun to be had with him since you have the way to play aggro or the way to play kind of more control. I think his aggro build would be more prominent, especially on arena. But I think a couple of tech cards like curses could still be really useful anyways. Or even just like a Brina to keep yourself going while you start to develop your board state. That said, though, I don't like the base art we have up right now too much, but I do love his alternate art. Um, Such a fan. He's nailing the theme of like that last samurai. And then of course, I do need to put a card up in there. If you play this deck, you have to include a one of copy of You Are Already Dead, because if you don't run it, you're not really living, you know? You gotta have that little Omae Wamu Shindaru, baby! Little Fist of the North Star. Do you have anything you want to add on him?
No, I think you said all I can think of, and somebody is going to come up with some fantastic pulls. Hopefully, you. I'm going to be looking for the video.
Yeah, I was gonna build him day one, but I need so many more of the samurai and stuff that are in the build that I was like I need to actually play my limited runs first.
Well, you can believe I'll be net decking the first list you come up for Isshin. But
Well, hopefully it will be out next week. That's the plan, is to have it all my limited up this weekend and I can have that out. Well, guys, that is it for my top 5 favorite cards from Meow's Commanders in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Do you agree with my picks, or do you have others that you would have made your top 5 or your top 10? If you have a way to build something that we haven't talked about or didn't touch on that you think is incredibly interesting, please leave it in a comment down below. I love hearing what you all have to say. I love hearing these, like, other people's opinions and stuff, because I am not the best builder ever. There are people who are going to see things I don't, and vice versa. Like, I'm going to see things other people don't, and that's like super important. If you liked this video, I urge you to go like and subscribe down below. It really kind of lets me know I'm doing something right with the videos, what you like and what you don't like, and what to work on more. And please stay tuned for content as it start releases later this week on Thursday. Thanks for watching. And I want to give a special thank you to Smurph for helping me out here. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. I hope you start feeling better. Do you have any final closing thoughts for everybody?
thank you for having me, and it's this positive, bright community that's really pushing me towards recovery and towards release week.
That's good, man. Hey, we're almost there. We're almost there. But that's gonna do it for us today, guys. Again, thank you so much for watching, and be radiant.